Today's interview will be about a new book just published by Line magazine. It's a book by Claudia Quintanilla called Making Memory. And if you stay till the end of this video, there is a surprise giveaway for all of you. So I hope you're going to stay and participate in this giveaway. And now, without further ado, here is Claudia. Hi, welcome to Fiberchats. My name is Irina. I'm the host here. And you know my guest because she was the guest of episode 217, Claudia Quintanilla. Welcome back to my channel. It's always a pleasure to have you here.
Thanks, Irina. It's a pleasure for me to be here. I love to see you again, and I love to talk to your subscribers.
Thank you. Well, the first time we talked, it was actually this episode 217. And if you guys haven't watched it, go back and take a look at it after you watch this interview. Don't go away just yet. But we talked about your first book back then, and it was Making Memories. It was the need for the children. And I remember my first thought when I got that book, I opened it and every pattern was just absolutely stunning. It was like so delicate, like I called my children and I said, like, I'm ready to become a grandmother, right? Like just from that book. But the first thing I told you about this book, I wish there was a pattern like this for adult sizes. And so you've been very busy recently. You've been working this year on the book for adults. So you continued sort of down the memory lane and you created another book, and it's actually called Memory Lane. So this book is adult patterns, and I love how you started the book. So I was reading the very beginning of the book, and you said this book is about embellishments and knitting, exploring how we can infuse meaning into garment we create and wear. And to me, that means so much because I know we shared stories of our growing up, and I always think about my grandmother was the one who first showed me how to knit. I remember she was teaching me how to mend socks, how to like attach the buttons to the button band, like simple little things with the needles. And to me, until today, every time I knit, I feel her presence in the room. Like to me, this is the connection between the generations. And when I was reading your book, and by the way, I know you're all jealous, but I got the advanced copy of it so I could read it before it was even officially published. It reads like a memoir. It reads like the walk down the memory lane. Tell me what made you decide to go that way? Because it's very intimate. It's very soul-bearing to write a book like this. It's not just a book of patterns. It's like your story.
Oh my God, you know what? Now that you asked me this way, I almost feel like to cry. So the book have been really emotionally intense for me. Not just because I did the book in such a short period of time, because a book usually take 2 to 3 years for people to make. This book took me 8 months, and everything really happened very fast. I mean, everything happened really in 4 months. Although I have like 3 of these patterns already made, the another ones are just were in my head. Mm-hmm. And very interesting happened with me with the books. I think 3 things that are really important to happen during the process of making the book. Number 1 is that I went through a process of knowing myself better. Well, it was very intense. Some of the sweaters, when I thought about what I'm going to write, they made me cry. They feel so emotional. It's very intense. The second thing that happened is that I got to get immersed in my own community in Canada and in my community in El Salvador. It made me go back to my roots, and that is very intense. It was huge. And the last thing is that I think that after this book, I don't think I can stop. I realized that my way of living is just by making, and that's how I become myself. So it is just a huge discovery of how this gives me so much. And I discovered something that is really important. I define for myself what is to be successful. And for me, this is being super important. For me to be successful is just with me and whatever I'm making. Either, in my case, it's my sweaters. In the case of another makers, maybe be their music, maybe either painting, maybe either embroidery. But I discovered that what made me successful is just between my being successful and me and my piece of art, in this case, my sweater. And when I see this piece and I feel myself happy, I feel all of these things and they go in my body too. Like I feel these emotions, this happiness, something that fill me up. And it's very intense and doesn't have nothing to do with the outside. I mean, I'm happy if people like it, but the important thing is that I was happy making it because I figured out that being successful outside, it doesn't depend really of what you make. It depends a lot of what another things in the moment that is in the market, who announce you, all of that is going to define how successful your piece is. But I made the decision that the important part of being successful is when you are success just with you and what you have made.
I
That's
think
real
like
success.
it's a great point because I always ask my guests like how they define success because we live in the world of numbers, right? There is views, there is likes, there is subscriptions and follows, and we sort of tend at some point to judge our success and our fulfillment by those numbers. And I catch myself thinking like, I don't really care. I mean, it's as lovely as it is, it doesn't define me. And what I enjoy the most is meeting people and talking to them and getting to know them and seeing the common threads and creating these connections. And like, this is exactly what you're saying, that for you, it was more about being happy with what you make and having that connection with your past from with your childhood, with the women in your life. And I want to talk a little bit more about it. So the very first pattern in that book, it's absolutely stunning. It's called Dorata, and it's this white cream sort of pullover, this golden butterflies. And you can see butterflies throughout a lot of your patterns. There are butterflies in your patterns. Why? Tell me about your connection with butterflies and Dorata specifically.
Dorate is a really intense sweater for me. It's the one that took the most work to produce. Well, some of them took longer to produce in terms of some of them that took a year to 2 years. Is the ones that I had before that was fast to think about it, but difficult the actual doing it of it because it's a lot of embroidery. The embroidery took like about 44 hours. And a lot of decisions to be made with the sleeves because in the beginning they were big, now they were thinner. So, but emotionally, Dorata is one of the most intense sweaters for me, and that's why it was put #1 in the book. I didn't make the decision of the order of the book. The publisher, Lane, made the decision. But when they have post all the photos, all the patrons on the book. I ask them if they can change the way that they're being put on the book, because I want Dorata to be the first one. Dorata is about butterflies, but it's about butterflies in relation to my relationship with my uncle. My father died when my mom was pregnant from me. So I grew up in my grandparents' house. And so my uncle took a lot of the role of my father because I didn't have a father. So he was way younger than my father. He was too young probably to be my father, but he made me part of a lot of the stuff that he used to do. And he was an engineer student. He studied the air, and one of his studies was butterflies. So he would take me with him to hunt butterflies and to put them in containers. That's kind of cruel, but that's the way they study them and preserve some of them and explain how they live and where they live. And so we went together in these expeditions to hunt butterflies. And I probably was 10, 11, something like that, maybe even younger than that. And then my uncle created in our house, we have a big garden house. He created a house for butterflies. Then we can see how they grow up, how they become a cocoon, that how they go the little, how you call them, worm, and then the caterpillar become cocoon, and how the cocoon open up and a butterfly slowly come out. So we study them. We have them, and we cover them with like this dark fabric, and we keep seeing what happened to the caterpillar and how he became a butterfly, and we did all of that together. So his relationship, my relationship with him was very close, but I didn't realize how close it was until we had a big breakout. Him and me, we don't speak. Something really terrible happened in my family, and I became distant just like about 3 years ago with the death of my grandmother. And so I made Dorata, and butterflies that were really important, and I didn't know why until I tried to explain myself why Dorata. And I ran into my cousin, the son of my uncle.
Mhm.
And I told him, I'm doing a sweater in memory of your father. And then I started to cry in the middle of a Starbucks in El Salvador. So it was really intense. I didn't know how much emotions I have that attach me to this man, and how the breakdown with him, to the breakdown of our relationship was so painful. So Dorata is like really very important for me emotionally.
Why did you decide to do the gold thread for the embroidery?
I haven't seen any gold butterflies, but I think gold is such a beautiful and intense color, and it signifies sun and richness and happy. And maybe that's connected. I used to love painting so much, okay? When I was younger, I was like intensely impassioned with all the painters, and I really like Kling in my memories of being 12, 13 years old, and he has so much gold in his paintings, and I find them so rich and beautiful. And maybe that, and the white, I think, is just such a beautiful combination. But it's more about Dorata. In that point, I mean, that's the emotional part of Dorata, but the planning to make it was really intense too, because I was here in Canada, and I know that I have to do this book within like 4 months because I opened my big mouth. And when I talked to the editors, or when I talked to Lane, they said to me, I said to them, I have a book. And they say, oh, you have a book. You're going to be ready to have it in 6 months. And I say, yes, I'm going to be ready to have it in 6 months. But I have it ready just in here. And here, I didn't have it ready, really actually all needed and all done. No, with the section of three patrons that they were really complicated to make. Aureliano, Conacaste, and Tecla, that already were made by that moment. But the rest that were just in my mind. So I was sitting here in my working room, in my working chair, and I have a lot of the books already neat because I have a good community here too. So I asked a couple of friends to help me with the books and with the sweaters that I was going to embroider. So I have a lot of the sweaters already in process of finish, but I realized, oh my Jesus, the amount of embroidery that I have to do is so huge that I don't ever going to finish these things within three or 4 months. It's just no way. So
Right.
in that moment, I realized maybe I should call my aunt, the one who told me to do a lot of embroidery and crochet and things like that. No, I called her. And I said, I'm having a problem. Can you help me to finish my sweaters? I have the ideas, I have the drawings. Could you help me? And she said, of course I could help you. But she says something even bigger than that. She said, I can help you and my friends can help you. Because my aunt is part of a group of women that they meet every week in a place called the Little House for women who are retired. And all of these women, they're between 60, 65 to 95. So my aunt said, take a plane and come. And I packed and left within 3, 4 days. I was there. And all the ladies that were ready to meet me.
And
And
I loved how you described it in your book. You said combined, there was more than 1,000 years of experience. And I think it's so important. Like when we look at people, we don't understand like what connects them, how many years they all do it, and how like combined forces, it's actually like thousands of years, you know?
yes. And I think I cut myself short when I say 1,000 years. I just don't want to lie or exaggerate, but the first day that I came, they all were waiting for me, and there were all the ladies there. And if I didn't really count them, but I think there were in that day, there's supposed to be 50, but I think that day there were probably 26 women there. And I don't know if you do the multiplication there and calculate, and all of them, let's average 70 years old. 70 times 25 or 26, I think is more than 1,000.
Right.
So the meeting of these ladies was another intense thing because they all talk about their embroidery. I asked them questions and they all talk about their craft connected to their lives. And that was beautiful. That was very moving, and have a video that in some moment I'm going to have ready for everybody to see. The video is not filmed professionally. I film it with my phone and I ask them questions, but the answers are amazing. I mean, I have women saying things like, I asked a woman what embroidery means to you. And she's like 80, and she said, embroidery means to me happiness. It means that I'm doing something that fulfill me 100%. And you see this 85 years old woman saying this, you go, this is amazing.
Well, let me ask you the same question, because you could have just made a collection of sweaters and it would be so much easier. And although like I know that embroidery or knitting is all the rage right now, what does embroidery mean to you? Why did you decide to bring embroidery into this collection?
I think somehow embroidery is easy if you want to put something on your knitting that is going to look more refined and more ethereal. And I'm very into the ethereal idea. I like things that they really like, they're just blow there and they're just like a shed somewhere. I mean, you can Fair Island designs, you can do intarsia, but I think embroidery was so appropriate because it's just like in the top of it and it's like a dream. My embroidery is a little different than the embroidery that is going on there right now. A lot of people are doing this embroidery with like wool that is so beautiful, so intense. My is attempting to be just like a little blow of air there. It's intended to be very soft and really like you can barely see it. You have to like really stop and look.
I mean, to me, it's also when I look at your projects, it's so you, like you can tell that it's your.
Or you want to make me cry?
being in every project, because like I follow a lot of artists who do embroidery on knitting, and they all very different, they very distinct. And I feel like that's part of the beauty of embroidery, because you can take the basic sweater where there is not much going on, and with embroidery, you suddenly make it very special, and you tell a story through your embroidery, right? Like that you might not necessarily be able to tell through just knitting. And I feel like this whole collection has a lot of you in it because of that.
I think everything we do as an artist, as a knitter, as a painter, because all of this for me is an art, is an expression of what we have in. It reflects a lot of us. And I think the sweaters reflect a lot of my experiences around. I do believe that as humans, get inspired about a lot of things that surround us, a lot of things and movies, music, literature, painting, all of those things, they're inspirations. And I believe that all of us are holding like a little glass or a little vase, like a little glass, and this glass or container, we fill it with our inspirations. And in the end, all of these inspirations get mixed inside, and then we come out with an idea. And that idea is part of our unconscious and our dreams and our experience. And then it becomes a sweater in my case. It will become a piece of music for somebody else. So I think that's what it is, no? An expression of your inside, whatever you have in that glass or yard, and we all have. We all have the capacity to make things, because we all are in here and we all can get inspiration for whatever surround us.
For those of you who haven't watched the first interview that Claudia and I had, I'm sure you are all curious about where Claudia was originally from. So let's talk about your childhood a little bit. So in the book, you mentioned that you grew up in Santa Tecla, is in Salvador, El Salvador. Tell me a little bit, like describe me that town. Tell me a little bit about your childhood, so we have a picture.
I think my childhood was like, I was really lucky, and I grew up in a real realismo mágico book. If any of you have read Gabriel Garcia Marquez and 100 Years of Solitude, I grew up in a household not sure of being Macondo from Gabriel Garcia Marquez and his beautiful book. I grew up in a house full of like intense emotions, intense color, in a town full of things happening all the time. And Latin America is really colorful, it's really blue, it's really green, it's really intense. But in the same time, I grew up with nuns. I went to a Catholic school with private nuns.
Mhm.
And so a lot of the stuff that I learned was really European, because all the nuns were Europeans. And I spent with them 13 years. So I think I was infused with like El Salvadorian culture and submerged in this school that I spent all my day too. So I think I have like a lot of mixed things happening in my childhood. And there is two sweaters that are really special about the town where I grew up and the culture that I grew up with. And one of them is Santa Tecla. And it's a sweater that I talk about the streets in my town and about the colors of the adobe houses and how a lot of the streets were made with little rocks. And so I have a sweater inspired on that in my town called Santa Tecla. And I have another sweater really most inspired in my childhood and in my relationship with my grandmother and her relationship with Spain, because her parents came from Spain, from a place really close to Granada, and she is from a town really close to there. So I did another sweater called Granada that was pretty much inspired in this like super rich culture full of like beautiful dance and music and pomegranates that were really meaningful in my house. We have a lot of trees of pomegranates. Another thing, we grew up surrounded by orange trees. My grandfather had like a farm, and he have a coffee farm, and he was crazy about having in the farm a lot of orange trees. And we spent a lot of time cutting oranges and making orange juice together. And the smell of these oranges and the blooms is so intense. So I think a lot of these things came from Granada, from where my grandmother were from, this like love for these fruits, and from a lot of traditions like the use of the fan, the use of a lot of like polka dots, and my grandmother used to dress really like elegant, always with polka dots and like red lipstick. So my grandmothers have been very, very influential in my becoming who I am. I mean, this is my grandmother from my father's side.
So when I saw Granada, I was literally stopped in the track because it's seemingly simple, but the sleeves on that sweater and the neckline on that sweater, it just makes it so dressy and so elegant. And you said that it's like terracotta dreams of Granada, basically. Like it's all the colors of the Granada. And then you had a very special experience when you went to Spain to take pictures for the book, right?
Yeah, that was very, very intense too. I mean, I usually Lane would take the sweaters. I would finish the sweaters like I did with the baby sweater, and this is what they do for most of the books. People pack their sweaters and send in a box, and they're gonna do the photos and everything themselves. But when I speak to Lane about this book, I told them that I want to be part of the process of taking the photos of the book, because I want the photos to be taken in Granada. The reason why I chose Granada is because Latin America, El Salvador would have been too hot, and the knitting is not really part of El Salvadorian tradition. And the only way that I can explain the tradition somehow is linked to Europe. And so that's why Granada was the place that I chose. And I thought that Granada was the most similar to my household, in the sense that it's less hot than Latin America, and people do wear sweaters in the winter, but they have all the traditions that I was brought up on, like the pomegranate trees, the oranges. And so that's why we went to Granada to do the photos for Granada for the sweaters.
Did it feel like really special for you to walk the streets of Granada with your daughter, with those sweaters, feeling your grandma's presence and like all of her ancestors there?
I think I wish to say yes, fully to that, but I had to be honest, and I was so stressed about the sweaters and just the getting there, that I promised myself that I'm going back to Granada without sweaters and without having to do a photo shoot, and about not having to be disgusting with my daughter, something about the sweaters being so hot and all of these things. I think I have to go back to Granada, and to a town that I really have to go, because my another grandmother is from a town called Linares. That is like an hour and a half from Granada, and I didn't have the chance to go. And even my name is Claudia Quintanilla Linares, so it's this place that I have to go. I don't think, Irina, I really did have chance to have all of that feelings that I thought I was gonna have. But that have been said, I have to tell you that I've been traveling a lot lately, and Granada have been the city that I have feel the most at home. I mean, I feel home here in Toronto. I love Toronto. And I feel home in El Salvador because I'm from there. But in Granada, I feel happy. I feel at home too. And that's so much to say for a place that you have never been.
Right.
The city is beautiful, and I'm going back.
I'd be very curious to hear your thoughts on that when you come back from there.
I think it's gonna be very intense because I don't gonna go for anything that is kind of business somehow. I mean, I don't want to call it business because I don't do this for business. I do this for love, 100% love. I love in the knitting, love in the craft, love to the yard. I mean, for me, this is my life. It's just my life, and it's really connected to what I really want to be doing.
Well, let's talk about your life, because at some point you left El Salvador and you moved to Canada and you opened a store in Canada called Unit in Toronto. And one of the sweaters in your book sort of talks about that, like it's that connection between living in Toronto but being from El Salvador, and your soul is like split in between those two places. And you have the sweater called Monarcha, and it's about the migrational journey of monarch butterflies that go from Canada to Central America. Tell me how that idea was born and the process of that sweater, making that sweater.
Well, it's this butterfly called monarchas. Then they're probably all of you have seen it living in the US and me living in Canada and being in Mexico, Central America. They're everywhere. They're orange color,
Right.
and they fly every year to the same place in Canada, and they go to Central America in the winter, and they come back, and they know how to come back, and they know how to go back, and they always go back to the same place. So that made me think about myself. No, I was somehow caught in the limbo between Canada, because I came to Canada young, but not too young to be Canadian. I came to Canada already when I have finished high school, already in my 20s. And so I didn't came early enough to be Canadian, fully 100%, but the same with El Salvador. I left there 20 years of my life, all my childhood. And so I always feel in between Canada and between El Salvador, and my heart is here, but my heart is there too. It's weird because this is probably a weird thing to say in a knitting podcast, but I always think when I'm gone, when I'm dead, where I going to want to be buried, where I want to stay finally, where is going to be my final place to rest.
Right.
Because I have loved so much for this city, Toronto, and I have so much love in my country, and that is where my family finished their journey in life. So I always in the middle of Canada and in the middle of El Salvador, and I thought that for us, a lot of women who have emigrated, I think maybe some of us, or maybe the majority of us, experience this confusion. Where I am from, where I really want to be, where I want my children to belong to. When my children talk about where they're from, I don't know. Do they want to be Canadian? Do they want to be a better Salvadorian? So it's always so much, it's very nostalgic and really
Interesting, like being an immigrant, it's always, you are so grateful for the country that you live in, because obviously, like if we didn't like it, we wouldn't be living here. We enjoying the experience, we build our families here, your business, my channel, everything happening here. So like the best years of our life are happening right here, but yet part of you is always there. So it's this life between the chairs, sort of, where you never 100% part of your new country, but you're not also 100% part of the old country either.
Where are you from originally?
Russia.
Do you go home sometimes?
I haven't been there since 1993, so for me it's more complicated than that.
My God, it's 29 years or something like that. 20.
It's been a while.
It's been a long time. Yeah. Well, I go to El Salvador every year. That's why the sweater is called Monarch, because they go back every year. And I've been going back almost every year the last 34 years. I have missed some years during the pandemic. During the pandemic was very intense for me because my mom, who actually was my grandma, passed away, and I couldn't go there. It was very difficult to don't go there in that moment. But so that's why the sweater is called Monarch and represent our journey of from Canada to El Salvador. And I guess in that journey is a whole life that we living, no? For you from Russia to the US, and that's
Well, let's talk about another sweater that I told you before we started this interview. In my mind, it's very you, because like you are such a vibrant, colorful person, and you're also like very elegant, and it's this combination of the two things, right? So you have this top, it's called Frida, and it was inspired by Frida Kahlo, who is one of your favorite painters, I assume.
yes, she was, but she was my lamp place because I love a lot of painters. I love Modigliani for that like intense burgundies that he used to paint in his nudes. I love nudes. So a lot of the nudes, I was obsessed with them, as I told you in my childhood. I like Monet, Clean. But in the end, when I got to be more mature and I was a student here in UFT in my undergrad, I did a paper, and my paper was all about Frida Kahlo. And I discovered that finally have a painter that represent me a bit better because was a woman and because her intensity with the colors and the beauty of the tropics of her country and her suffering for all the things that women go through in Latin American culture. I mean, she was in touch with a lot of things and then I was just beginning to understand. And then that's why I call that top Frida Kahlo, because I think she is like in her painting full of flowers, intense colors. And it surprised me that you say that I use intense colors because I don't tend to use intense colors. I think I tend to be more pale.
I don't
I
mean
tend
even colors used in your designs. I mean your as personality. You are very colorful.
so anyway, so Frida is like full of color, full of things that they're not just not just the knitting, it's things that they have been placed in the knitting. I place the flowers in the knitting, and the flowers were something that I really didn't plan to do. Frida was something that really came out from El Salvador. I mean, I call it Frida, but came out of my experience with the ladies in El Salvador.
Well, let's
Because
talk about those flowers because they intimidate me a little bit just looking at them. Are they difficult to make? Like, and talking about embroidery in general, when people look at your beautiful projects, they might get intimidated just because it's something like an extra step to the knitting, right? So tell me about those flowers and embroidery in general for your designs.
okay, the flowers they're happening in El Salvador because I was there meeting these ladies and they were going to help me. And then few of them ended helping me, like four of them helped me to finalize some of the projects. And I noticed that all of them were making flowers. And my aunt is my aunt teach how to make these flowers. And they're made with silk ribbon. And they use them to put it in like little decorations for the wall.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't like that. But when I saw the flowers, I thought they're so cute. And it's funny because I notice now that in a lot of the fashion shows, flowers are in.
Right.
This embellishment with like silk flowers is like huge right now. So, but in that moment, I thought, wow, I could use some of these flowers to just put one in my top. And then I thought, why not to put them all over the top? And that's how the idea of the flowers became an idea because I saw the ladies making them. So I have a big basket here with all type of different flowers. Well, my aunt said that she know how to make like about 100 and something flowers. They're not difficult to make, but they require a bit of practice. And they're all type of different ones. And they all have like a different formula to make. Some of them that have like a lot of steps to follow to make. And some of them that have just like few steps, like 2 or 3 steps, and they're way easier to do. And I don't think they're intimidating, but I think it's take a little bit of practice to get some of them to be done well. especially the roses, something like the ones that they're in my sweater Frida, they're really easy to make.
Okay.
The ones in the sweater, they're like, after you know the formula, you probably can make them easily. You can learn them in 20 minutes.
Well,
But
talking of roses, you have another sweater that's called Rosa, and it's named after your grandmother. And you mentioned in the book the skirt that she used to wear covered with roses. Tell me about that skirt.
to tell you about the scare, I have to tell you a little bit about my grandma. Her name was Rosa. And my grandmother suffered schizophrenia after were you born with schizophrenia, but she was okay until she turned like about 28 years old. She started to develop a depression after she had a baby. And then she was diagnosed with schizophrenia, no? And she was a very crafty person. She used to be a baker. And so that means that she was really good with her hands, no? Baking. She did a lot of embroidery, a lot of crochet, a lot of crafts. And she became fully schizophrenic, and that didn't have any treatment in those days. But she still craft. She still make all the clothes she wear. And she was obsessed about wearing just black clothes with a white top. So she would have these beautiful white silk tops with a lot of ribbons or with a lot of like lace. She loved lace. And she always would have this like line A skirt, black. And she would have these like shoes, and they were really bulky, and they were made with like, they were padded. And a pair that was padded and was like black, everything black. And she would have these big buttons, and she would have make a jacket that she would wear on. She was very elegant. And one day, I must have been very young again. I don't remember, less than 10 years old. But one day I see her coming out, and she's wearing the same skirt, but she have embroidered the skirt with roses, and they're falling down from the top down. But there were the most amazing thing that I have never forget. There were shimmer, there were in a red, like this kind of red, like a burgundy red, like a blood that is being dry. And it looks so beautiful and so perfectly done that I don't know, I don't understand how she can produce these beautiful things and be living in her own planet and be so resourceful. How she got all the materials that she need to make this. I don't know that either. But they left a big impression on me. And that's what I made this sweater called Rosa. I don't think the sweater touched the surface of how beautiful that skirt was. My sweater didn't go to be as her skirt. But I'm going to still try it. I'm going to do another thing with the roses, because I think the sweater is beautiful, it's nice, but I think I still missing something to get to say what my grandmother want to say with that roses.
There was another sweater in this book, and I'm actually starting to knit that sweater. It's called Wings, and you mentioned that you wanted to finish the book with that sweater, and it's based on a poem, and you dedicated it to all the victims of femicide. Tell me about this sweater, and tell me why this topic is important to you.
Feminicide is something really common in Latin America. I think just in Mexico, a woman gets killed every 10 minutes. I don't know the statistic exactly, but it is huge. So, and it's not just huge in Latin America, it's keep happening everywhere. And I mean, I grew up with it. I grew up seeing the paintings of Frida Kahlo, and one of his famous painting is called Unos Cuantos Piquetitos. It is about this woman who been killed, and she been stopped with a knife like 200 times. I don't know how many, but it shocked me when I saw it when I was younger. But wasn't until now that I'm older that I hear this song by Bibi Quintana called Canción Sin Miedo. Then I realized how big and sad this is, and how it keep happening, and it's not stopping. It's like the situation is the same. So I feel that was important to finish the book with a memory that wasn't just my memory. I want to finish the book with the memory of these women, that they deserve to be remembered, and there are stars in the sky, and they have lived their families, they have lived their children, and they have lived a big void, a big sadness, a big, I don't know how to say this, it's so sad, a big melancholic, and an affair ended of their lives. So I feel that I have to be their voice, and I want to be their voice for the future. I want this to stop to happen, and I think that's not going to stop to happen during we don't talk about it. This is a crime, but I want to end it with a sweet note. Each crystal in the sweater represent each of these lives. And so I think what's really important for me is like something that it need to be said.
Why did you call it Wings?
Oh, because the song is very beautiful. I don't know how to translate it because I'm kind of bad in translation, and but in the song they say they're taking our life and we grow up wings. So they become angels, they become stronger, they can fly, and they're still there. So that's why I call it wings, because the song talk about how all of these things that are being done to women, and women instead to disappear and stop their grow up wings. So
well, I want to congratulate you on writing this beautiful collection of sweaters. Each one, like I was trying, you asked me at some point which one is my favorite, and I honestly had the hardest time to pick even like 3, because like I love all of them, and it made me really, what I like about this book specifically, I was reading your stories, but I was thinking about mine. It brought my childhood memories to me. It brought the women in my family to my mind, like just reading your stories reminded me of my childhood. So I think this is what people gonna find, that it's not just a collection of beautiful sweaters, it's those stories that connect all of us to the makers before us and make it so much more special. That's when we say like made with love, it's like love in every stitch. It's not just that we sit on the sofa and watch TV and make something mindless. Those memories always connect us with the makers from generations before, with places that we visited before. There is a lot of sweaters down that memory lane. And
yes,
you did a wonderful job putting this, because it's a very interesting collection. There is no 2 sweaters that look alike. There are different techniques that you can learn. There is different looks. There is something for everyone. But I'm sure that people will appreciate you sharing your stories down your memory lane, and it's gonna open their mind to their memory lane.
I think you just say something to finalize this for me. The idea of the book was that people who didn't want to do the part of the decoration or embellishment, they could just use the sweater as it is without embellishment because they're wearable. But you just say something that it fulfill one of my intentions with the book. One of my intentions with the book is that all of us go into our memory lane, and all of us can create whatever we want. You don't have to use my butterfly. You can use something that was meaningful to you where you come from. And I like that make you think that way. And I hope that a lot of the people who get the book start to think about their own memories, and then about their own capacity to make their own piece of art or their own expression of their memories.
And I'm so happy that you said that you're going to continue working down memory lane and that we can expect more designs coming.
Oh yeah, yeah. I can give you a little bit of a secret. I don't know if it's a secret anymore, but I am working in 2 big projects right now.
I'm always excited to hear
You're
about.
gonna know very soon.
Well, I can't wait. And I'm going to put all the information on how people can order this book from you in the description of this video. So you guys can go and get your own copy of Memory Lane. And please share, if you're on Instagram or if you're on Ravelry, share your projects that you're going to make from this book. Tag Claudia and the team of Unit Toronto on Instagram. Send me a picture. My email is fiberchats@gmail.com. So I always love to see what you guys make. So, or write us a comment what this conversation made you remember about your own childhood. Thank you so much, Claudia. Thank you for being my guest today. It's always
Thanks for inviting me. It's always such a pleasure to speak to you.
And I can't wait to see you soon at Rhinebeck.
Yes. Or you want to see me earlier. Okay.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Thanks, Irene. Thanks, people, for being here.
For those of you who stayed till the end of this video, thank you so very much. Please consider clicking a subscribe button and liking this video. But I also have a little surprise for you. Claudia offered me 2 books as part of a giveaway for this video and for the release of her book. So all you have to do to enter into the giveaway is share one of your childhood memories in the comments. It can be as short or as long as you would like to. And that's going to be your entry into the giveaway. I'll announce the winners on Tuesday, October 1st. I'll make a separate video just announcing the winners so you know who you are and then how you can contact me. The giveaway is only open to the US and Canada because the shipping cost would be cost prohibitive to send it to other places. Best of luck to you in this giveaway, and thank you so very much for watching my videos.